So things are changing. Are you as confused by the changes as I am?
How about this? I'm not confused is maybe not the word, but more of a little surprised, a little trying to just take it all in at where we are. I mean, we for the past 15 months really have been tightened down, or we thought the same thing, right? Mask, distancing, hand hygiene, stay home when you're sick. And then it became mask, distancing, hand hygiene, get vaccinated. And we've now watched what happens when you vaccinate. And what I would say in reflection of where we are today versus when I walked into your studios at a 10 p.m. March 12th of 2020, at that point in time, we didn't wear masks. We tapped feet instead of shaking hands. And then we learned some important things over the next 15 months. One, masks work unbelievably well. They work for COVID-19. They work for influenza. They work for RSV. They work for common colds. I don't know about you, but I haven't been healthier when it comes to getting a cold than I've ever been. Now, with that being said, we also know that doing that has been really hard on all of us, mentally, emotionally, physically. I think people have not done things they normally do because there's the nervousness, scared, and the things of what do I do next? So we know that. So we know masking, distancing work. We know the impact of all of this has been hard. The mental health crises that was before the pandemic has been exacerbated, especially in children. So I think that's big. And then I reflect on what vaccination has done, and we get this news that we can vaccinate another group, 5% of our US population being the 12 to 15-year-olds. And we do that, and we've started to see over and over that the longer that an age group has been allowed to be vaccinated, the more their case rates have dropped. You look at some of the highest case rate age groups, like the 30 to 39-year-olds, or the 45 to 50-year-olds, or whatever those groups are, they're now equivalent to the 10 to 14-year-olds, right? That's never happened. That's because of vaccine. And you look at the hospitalization, vaccine is why they keep going down to levels we haven't seen since the beginning. So taking that all in today, and with the news yesterday of the CDC saying, look, if you're vaccinated, you don't need the mask when for the most part in many situations. Now, I think the part of this that's confusing is like, wow, that was a complete about face, but they did leave things in place, right? We know masks work. So if you're in an airport, you're on a bus, you're in a large group where you have no clue who's vaccinated or not, wear your mask. And I think as a community, we just need to remember kindness and understand that some people aren't ready to take their masks off. And that's okay. And there's some good knowledge that we know it works. And if you don't know if you're around unvaccinated or vaccinated people in your large groups, I'd wear your mask. I think that's fine. But I do think the CDC is moving in the direction that I think that's good. And I think we're all confused because we weren't thinking that was coming. And I think it's going to take us a little bit of time to get used to not wearing a mask, as crazy as that sounds. And I think some of the data suggests maybe it's okay. I'm not sure exactly where I am yet, Casey. I'd say I'll probably definitely wear my mask in an airport. I'll wear my mask in public transportation if I'm near person. Now, when I go to the supermarket, am I going to wear a mask? Today, I think maybe. I'm vaccinated, but I do like the comfort of my mask and doing my distancing when I'm at the supermarket. Now, that's just because that's what the last year's been. But I don't know if I see someone without a mask, that's okay. That's great. I'm glad they feel comfortable doing that. And maybe I'm being a little over, but I don't think we need to judge on what people are doing, because I think we know that overall these things have worked, and we want to keep ourselves safe. And it could also mean who you live with, the groups you're around when you go home. Someone that maybe is immunized but has an immune system that isn't as robust because they're on medicines or they have a condition, and maybe they're not going to be 100. Their vaccine efficacy is going to be different. So maybe you are going to wear a mask because of that. That's okay. Now we just got to support people, because there's no doubt we're in a way, way better place, and we can see that we're coming to the end. And I think that's okay. That's a lot of words for a recording.
No, but I think that it kind of, well, that's fine. I think it speaks to this isn't a black and white issue. There's a
No.
lot of gray area in this.
Yep.
Just a couple of things of what you made me think of there. You're talking about times when you might want to wear a mask. A couple of things to consider there. One, no vaccine's perfect. We know about 1 out of 20 maybe might actually get a breakthrough case. Hopefully it's not nearly as severe.
Yep.
And hopefully they don't have, stop me when I'm wrong, you're the doctor, but hopefully they don't have the same likelihood of passing that along with a vaccine in their system. So there is still some risk. It's not 100% guarantee. But then also there are people who can't have a vaccine. I'm thinking about people who are undergoing treatment for cancer or organ transplant recipients. When they go to the grocery store, are we kind of just saying tough luck? Because they don't know who's vaccinated and who's not.
So this is where I think that we got to support people for wearing masks, because we know that masks work. And if we see somebody in the grocery store that's wearing a mask, we should respect that's where they are. And it could be for the reason you just stated. They live with somebody that just underwent a transplant, or they live with somebody that can't get the vaccine, or they just aren't there because they know that there's an extra risk. And that's what we have to remember. And with that, then yeah, we can, maybe we do our social distancing because we see somebody in a mask and that's there. That's good. That's okay. I mean, we learned over time, right, that at first we started that everybody had to be masked, but there's no doubt that one person wearing a mask is a protective, even if somebody else isn't wearing a mask, though it's not as protective if everybody's wearing a mask. And so now you add the layer, right? And as we know, if you're unvaccinated, you should be wearing a mask. But I think we all know there's going to be some people that aren't going to be vaccinated and not going to wear a mask. I think in general, there's probably going to be a lot more people who aren't vaccinated, hopefully, that are wearing masks. And I like to believe in that. And I also think that CDC and others are saying, look, the data is really getting better and better about the impact of vaccines. So those of you who are kind of still on the fence about vaccines, you get vaccinated, it becomes a lot easier to do a lot of things. And because the CDC wouldn't have said it, look, we know this, right? The CDC would not have said this if they didn't have really strong beliefs about the fact that your disease is milder if you get it and you're vaccinated. There's no doubt we turn a fatal respiratory virus, right? A virus that can give you a respiratory, pneumonia that can kill you. And the vaccine turns that into a common cold. That's what it does. And that's what we've seen. And that, I think, has to be, there's more and more data that has to be demonstrating that with this sort of recommendation. So I think in the end, we just got to support people, let people do what they need to do. And in the end, hopefully get more and more vaccinated because they see the benefit of it.
Just to be clear, because we've been told that the mask is really about keeping that disease from spreading to others more than it is from protecting me. But you're saying it can offer some protection if I am not able to have a vaccine I need, or if I am vaccinated and I'm going to be on an airplane or whatever. So can the mask protect me a little bit too?
Yeah. We definitely learned over time that it did more than just prevent the spread. It actually gave you some protection as well. And we learned the types of masks. Right now, we learned that double layer cotton was going to be better. But, these surgical masks that are now you can go buy in, any of your local pharmacies or even in the supermarket anywhere. You can put those on that have another layer of protection than just cotton based. I mean, that I've now just done that. You can double. We learned about you could double mask, right? You put the surgical mask with a cotton over it. That provides an additional layer and potentially more protection. So I think what we've learned that masks work. And I think we all need to step back and think that this step here of saying you're vaccinated, you don't need to wear a mask in many situations, not all, but in many situations, it's great. And I think there's a big, relief. Everyone's like, oh yes, I can feel it. But I want people to remember and to be prepared that in the winter, we could go turn around and say, everybody put your masks back on. right? We don't know what's going to happen next with COVID-19. We don't. And if we think we do, then we haven't learned what's happened the previous 15 months. And so I don't think it's out of the question that late fall, early winter, or whenever, that there could be another, what we can call a surge. Now, I hope it's not a mountain surge like we experience in October, November, December in St. Louis. Maybe it's a molehill, but maybe we say, look, we have a variant. Maybe it's a variant that's kind of escaped, quote unquote, escaped our immune system with those vaccinated. We need to put the mask back on. We need to do some of these things. We as a community, society, just need to understand that we have learned a lot, and we learned a lot of what can help us. Vaccination, masking, distancing, staying home when we're sick. We should be prepared to maybe go back to some of that. That's okay. It's going to keep us safer, healthier, protect those who need to be protected. So I just want us, we all need to be ready for that.
Which I think is probably, if you travel to other parts of the world, there are other places where that's more culturally acceptable.
Yes, exactly right.
Flu season, wear a mask, or if you're sick, wear a mask.
Exactly. Casey, we need to remember, like, our country has accepted 50 to 75,000 deaths due to influenza every year and haven't blinked an eye about it. Right? We haven't. That's just part of living in the United States. Now, we also learned that in this past winter, I don't know. I can't name someone that had influenza. I don't know. I mean, because we got rid of it essentially by doing this. So I do think that society changes, right? You learn, and hopefully I think if that's going to protect a lot of people from dying, 50 to 75,000 US, I mean, I as a pediatric infectious disease doctor, I have seen too many children die of complications of influenza. I didn't see that this year. It's awesome. Right. So I think that's what we have to remember, that this stuff works. These things, these mitigation. I mean, I'm sure everyone's tired of the word mitigation strategies, but they work. And probably one of the simplest ones is just don't go to work when you're sick. Don't send your kid to school when they're sick. That's a hard thing to do. And I can understand many others like, I can't do that. Well, how can we support people so they can?
I have to ask you though, you made a point earlier about, this is no judgment, but I just think it's a fair statistical guess that there are very few folks who have chosen that the vaccine isn't right for them, and also will then wear a mask under these new guidelines. I think that person is pretty rare. Do you think that's a reasonable request by the CDC and local governments?
I think in the climate that we're in, that's what we all have seen and probably experienced, and therefore I think that's a fair comment to make. I think there's the other side of this is that there's a lot of people in the middle. There's a lot of people that are kind of like, man, do I get vaccinated? Do I not? There's a lot of people that haven't gotten vaccinated that are wearing their masks because they just rather do that. And I probably would say that that's kind of where I'm thinking, is that that belief in these folks who are just, man, they're struggling, right? They're like, I'm just not sure. And maybe that this extra, look, we have better data. You getting vaccinated. We have good vaccine data now. Like those who are on the fence to get vaccinated because they're waiting to learn more. Now we're over 200 million doses. Easy that's been delivered to individuals primarily by Moderna and Pfizer, and we haven't seen serious side effects. Now, mind you, I had my fatigue and aches, after my second one.
Me too.
I think that's common, and it's fine. You get over that fine, and I think that, but we have a lot more data to say that the vaccines are safe, and we also have data. And Johnson & Johnson came out and said, look, we're seeing what potential concern. And they stopped. Second, and you're like, they shouldn't have stopped because it turns out to be 1 in a million. I don't know if that's the debate to have. What we should probably say is that we have a system that can identify the rarest of the rare, and we all realize that the benefit of the vaccine completely outweighs the risk. But at least we have learned, and we've learned that we have a great system for that. We have a great system for safety for vaccines. I mean, you have to say that if you can pick up 1 in a million. And now you have these vaccines that you can't find any of these, so they're safe. So I think that's the piece. But I think back to your original thing, there's a lot of people on the fence. And I think there's probably a lot more people that are wearing it and doing what they're supposed to, just not vaccinated, then maybe they will now. I don't know, maybe it's a Friday, beautiful afternoon in St. Louis and half full. And I think there's definitely a bright light that the recommendations yesterday suggest. While we're confused, some are like, that's crazy. Some are like, thank you. In the end, we're moving in the right direction, and we're so much closer to a full stadium at the Cardinals, or a packed house to watch the Blues. Now, it might be as soon as we want, but it's a lot closer than it was, man, back on March 12th, 2020. That's for sure.
Yeah, well said. And last thing I was thinking of, you talk about the potential for maybe a molehill of a surge in the fall. That might, unfortunately, that we might see folks. I'm not sure what the question is here. I don't want to seem callous, but that could be people who are not vaccinated. We could see a surge in people unvaccinated, I guess. Is that possible?
We could. I'm, Dr. Fauci, obviously, as a infectious disease or pediatric infectious disease, you look at Dr. Fauci and it's like, oh, Dr. Fauci, right? I mean, I love that his positivity of says, no, we're going to get to 70%. I think that's probably the right way we all need to be thinking. Yeah, we have people that are they're still struggling. We call them hesitant. Well, okay. And there's some that said, look, I'm not doing it. Okay. Okay. That's okay. But I actually think, Casey, we're going to get to a point where we're feeling pretty good about herd immunity. I'm going to be in that camp for now. Others aren't. That's fine. And so I actually think that our surge is going to be a variant. That's my bet. My bet is that we're going to have like a different quote unquote strain / variant that's going to see. And then we're going to have the debate of, are we getting our next vaccine, right? Are we going to get our quote unquote boost or the additional dose, because we have to go against that. That's what makes sense to me, because that's what flu is like, and it's a respiratory virus. But it'd be crazy if I told you I haven't been wrong maybe 5, 10, however many times during this. So,
well, maybe that's something we've learned, or hope we should learn, is that in a world where we want very direct answers, we have to acknowledge that we're learning as we're going with these kinds of things, and that we might have to take steps back, so to speak, with masks and things like that.
Exactly. And it's really interesting, right? Like, and I think we all fall into this, right? We're always looking for that person to be wrong, to tell them when they're wrong. And in some respects, we probably should celebrate the person that says, look, that was wrong. We need to pivot. And instead of like being excited that they were wrong, be like, oh, good, they're actually watching it. They're saying they got to pivot, instead of just digging their heels in, saying we should just do the same thing over and over again. And you could argue, and I hadn't thought about this, you could argue what CDC did yesterday was brave and somewhat courageous, because that was a complete, one would say, about face, though they see a clear benefit with the data they have. And I'm coming around to thinking, well, you know what? Good. Let's see. Let's support and let's go forward.
Yeah, because it could be easy for someone to dig their heels in and not want to agree with their detractors, who've been kind of, the non-experts who've just been anecdotally saying, let us play soccer outside without a mask, or whatever it is.
Yeah. No, it's time. It's easy stuff it's always, I don't know, there's the Theodore Roosevelt quote about it's easy to be the one on the sideline, but you'd rather be the one in the ring, actually, getting beaten up and doing that, because you're in there doing something. So, I think that's part of it. And so, but I hope that we all can just, come together even more. We all know it's been up and down, and there's been the different fights back and forth, political, non-political, our friends, families. The divisiveness has been crazy.
Exhausting.
But it's been crazy. I'm sure, but I think we'll reflect back and look where we did a lot of great things together. Look at St. Louis. Who would have thought that the 3 major healthcare systems would band together to have conversation and to try to help, have a unified voice. You get, vaccines for 12 to 15-year-olds, and you have all these groups saying, okay, here you go. And they're sharing and they're doing these things. That's amazing. Who would have, and you see that over and over. I think just in all the community organizations that have really stepped up to help people. Hopefully we can learn from that and make those things better. And then also let's look at how it did uncover some of the, one would say, our warts in our local community versus to nationally. Specifically the disproportionate impact of this virus on people of color, especially our African-American friends and colleagues and neighbors and loved ones. And how can we make ourselves better? Because now we're definitely seeing that and not forget that as we get through this pandemic and move forward. I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to just become better all together and celebrate how we were better when we were together.
Yeah. This has been really insightful. We're going to make an effort to post this in its entirety because I think there is a lot for those who care to listen. I will ask you though, just to kind of give me one last thought on this change. If you can
Yeah.
summarize
Yeah,
the
my
last.
no. I appreciate the conversation. You know, I love to talk, Casey, and you guys have been some of my favorites to get to have these conversations over the past 15 months. And my final thought is we're moving in the right direction, and it's okay to be confused. It's okay to wonder what one might do, seeing that if you're vaccinated, you don't need to wear your mask. Doesn't mean you don't have to wear your mask. And there's certain situations you still wear your mask. You know, large indoor gatherings where you don't know who's vaccinated or not, it's okay to wear a mask, especially if you have loved ones in your house that can't be vaccinated or potentially have an immune system that won't respond as well to the vaccine. So I think it's okay to have your mask on at times. And those people who aren't going to wear the mask because they're fully vaccinated, we should support those who are. But we also should just finally remember that we are not completely out of this. We're very close. I mean, you can feel it now much more than even 3 days ago. Now, especially when we're vaccinated 12 to 15-year-olds. But as we move forward, let's remember some of our common things that I think whether you wear a mask or not, don't go to work sick. You know, don't send your kids to school sick with what we think is COVID-19. And then let's, help support those and provide more information to those not vaccinated. And let's continue to work together as we move into the post-pandemic age. And then let's get better from what we learned during our quote unquote unprecedented pandemic times.
Well said. We'll continue to talk to you and guide us through. The last thing we want to do is fumble this at the 1 yard line or 15 yard line. Whatever.
It's right. No, I hear you. Anyway, I appreciate the opportunity to have a conversation.
Absolutely, doctor. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Casey. Have a great day. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Same to you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.